Welcome to Talk South Asian to me. My name is Michelle.
And my name is Anusha. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Central and hear us react to each other's stories about mental health and growing up in different South Asian households.
And remember, this podcast is not therapy. Engage with what feels entertaining and resonates with you and leave what doesn't. All right. Are you ready for our topic reveal for letter E?
So ready. I am so ready for
Okay.
this topic.
Yes, I'm so excited. So, our topic is eating and diet culture and the harmful effects of casual commentary. So this is a
Mhm.
pretty heavy topic.
Ooh.
And I would say, it's pretty prominent in my experience growing up as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And
I
I
can't
feel like
wait.
there's also so much talk about this too already. We're not the
Mhm.
first people, I'm sure, that are talking about this, but
I
it's
hope
so
not.
important to address it. Yeah, it's so important to address it because
Yeah.
it is real.
Oh, yeah. I have a little
Yeah.
surprise poll that I've done that I can't wait to tell you all the results.
And I know I saw it on Instagram. I'm so excited. I participated myself, so I'm excited to hear about the results.
I love that. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Um, yes. And before we kind of move into our personal experiences, I kind of wanted to give some background info. And so I wanted to kind of first start off by giving kind of or shedding light on how big of this large topic this is, right? Eating and diet culture. This can be taken into so many different directions. I feel like we can dedicate so many different podcast episodes
Oh,
dedicated to
yeah.
just this topic. And, there is the positives and the not so positive aspects of eating and diet culture. And so, the positives, there's so much to be proud of. The South Asian culture has shared so much from its own culture when it comes to food and dietary practices. More and more people in the Western world are adopting different cooking practices and recipes that have been long carried out in the South Asian traditions.
Yeah.
And some aspects are more appreciative of that and authentic. And then, of course, some are more toward cultural appropriation, which we all know. But,
Golden milk.
yes, right? Or chai tea,
I can't. Non-bread.
right? Non bread. But it's really amazing to see the influence that South Asian traditions have had on food and dietary practices. But I kind of wanted to shift our directions toward a little bit more when it comes to eating habits. So, diet culture
Mhm.
related to eating habits,
Mhm.
the views of diet and a person's weight in South Asian households, and specifically when casual commentary occurs, how does that relate to eating habits and the view of self and view of dietary practices for yourself?
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Hit me
I
with
feel
them
like,
facts.
yeah, are you ready? Did
I'm
some
so ready.
research. So I found a research article that was published in 2021, and this study focused on body image and eating disorders among over 50 South Asian American women. So it's a pretty recent study, 2 years ago it was published, and they studied over 50 South Asian American women, and they
Yeah.
found through this study that negative comments related to a female's appearance slash weight is related to eating disorders and body
Mm.
dissatisfaction. So the research shows that there is a correlation.
Mm.
And it is so unfortunate that this is reality, right? But it's so
Yeah.
important that we bring awareness to this topic, and that
Yeah.
harmful and negative comments about young South Asians' weight, or even older, right? Any age South Asians' weight or appearance does have long-term consequences. Research shows that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Words are so powerful and it needs to stop. It's so important. It's so heavy, right?
Yeah.
It's not these casual commentary that's supposed to be meant to be casual, you know, joking. It's not. It's not
Mm.
casual and it's not a
Yeah.
joke. And I will say that there are more and more people that are starting to build awareness and speak up, which is amazing. So while I was doing some research on this topic, I found a beautifully written article about this topic. It was published on the Boston University website last March of 2022, and it was titled Student Reflection: Eating Disorders in the South Asian Community. And the
Mm.
author of this article the author's name is Shika Advani, reflected on this topic and what cultural aspects drive these issues, which was really
Okay.
cool. It was kind of like a follow up to the research article. Like, okay, we know that there is a correlation, but what are things that are driving this?
Mm-hmm.
And Advani discusses the constant body shaming that can occur, maybe by Indian aunties or other members in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Advani also discusses that there is little South Asian representation in the media in terms of body sizes and addressing mental health issues such as eating disorders.
Mm-hmm.
And then how the standards of beauty can be harmful and perpetuate body dysmorphia and harmful eating habits leading to
Yeah.
eating disorders.
Mm-hmm.
So I do recommend that you read it. I'm happy to send it to you, Anusha. I think
Yes,
it's an
do it.
amazing article, very beautifully written. And Advani, if you're listening, thank you for bringing light to such an important issue.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like the facts and kind of some background
Yeah.
information. Do you feel like any of this was like new to you, or you feel like, it's repetitive from what you've heard, or what are your thoughts about it?
Well, it 100% just affirms what I've always like felt and known, but I've never actually like looked up the research. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, the research, but I'm glad that there's science. And
Yeah.
I hope having the science and the data to back it up, if enough people know, I hope that makes a difference, a dent, but I don't know. People are going to do what
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah. And I really like the focus about like how it's still a taboo, it's still stigma to talk
Yeah.
about mental health and eating disorders, and these, body image issues are part of those mental health issues that are not
Mm-hmm.
addressed. And
Mm-hmm.
it's saddening, but it's so important
Yeah.
to shed light on it.
Oh, yeah. Well, are you ready for my facts?
Yes, I'm
My
ready.
mini study.
Yes.
So, as you know, like with my Instagram platform, Chai with Anusha, I have a lot of therapy related content. So, I talked about today how I was doing this podcast and I wanted to take a quick poll and see like I just wanted to see like who would respond, and if they responded, what would
Yeah.
they say? So, I asked a couple of
That's so awesome.
questions. Yeah,
Okay.
I got responses, loved it. Thank you so much for anyone who's listening who participated, aka Michelle, you. Thank you. And the
You're
others.
welcome.
So what I had asked was the topic is like harmful comments that are just
Hmm.
kind of casually said, and like how have they affected you? So I gave a couple of options. One was, has that affected you based on like how you eat, restricting what you eat, restricting how much you eat, and or binging and
Hmm.
overindulging. The other category I had was like over exercise, like trying to compensate by like staying in the gym all the time and like trying to like burn a lot of weight, whether through cardio,
Hmm.
whether through lifting weights, whatever, just like really trying to exercise and sweat it all out. Another option was has it affected you by creating like low self-esteem, low self-worth, self-loathing? And then the last one was the option of, did it not affect you at all? Were you able to brush it off? Were you able to be like, oh, not mine, I'm not claiming this? Um, and then on a separate thing, I kind of also asked, and I'll tell you this one too in a minute, of like how many of those things kind of combined. So not just like one of these things, but more than one of these things. So 21 people responded to this poll.
Wow, that's awesome. Look at
Yeah.
that.
And of the 21 people, 4 people, which is about 19% of people, said that they were affected with restricting and binge eating.
Hmm.
That's how they were affected by these harmful comments. And we will talk in a minute. I have some ideas of harmful comments that I've heard, and you can kind of chime in too about the
Yeah.
things that you can think of. So 4 people restrict binge food, 19% of this poll. That's a lot. This one didn't quite surprise me. Tell me if this surprises you, but in terms of like over exercising, only one person said that that was them, which is like
Hmm.
5%. Does that surprise you?
Okay. A little bit. I mean, it was also a small number, so I'm sure there's more people
Yeah.
out there that could relate to that. But I do think the stat of binging or restricting being higher, that's not surprising to me.
Yeah. This one did not surprise me. And I will tell you why a little later when I talk about my personal story. But essentially, like, typically from what I see, most of the South Asian community, we tend to restrict and like not eat rather than actually working out. So the
Mm-hmm.
adding that layer of overworking out, like that just seemed a stretch for me and what I know at least in my communities and circles. So this one didn't surprise me though. Um,
Mm.
Moving on, as I'm sure you can imagine, the largest number of people voted for low self esteem, low self worth, and
Mm-hmm.
self loathing. 14 people, which is like 67% of people
Yeah.
who did this poll. Um, and then only 2 people said that they were able to brush it off.
Mm.
10% of them. Yeah. Now, of the 21 people who answered the first part of that question of the poll, 14 people answered the second piece, which was, have you experienced more than one thing? 14 people, all of the 14 people who responded said yes,
Mm.
they have. I imagine low self esteem, self worth, which was popular, was the top one that they chose, and the restricting binging was the second one, likely, but maybe the
Mm.
overexercise too. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have a write-in option too for anyone who felt they wanted to share a little bit more about like specifics of how it might have affected them. And I'm not going to call
Yeah.
out any names, of course, but more of the responses they had. So here are the things that I heard people say. They said that they felt both skinny shamed and fat shamed, depending on who they were talking to. So their
Mm.
takeaway was, you can't please anybody. So this is a person who said that they were able to brush it off. Perhaps because they got both of those dual perspectives. They
Mm.
also, I don't know how this will factor in, but they were also a male. So
Mm-hmm.
again, maybe there's something there, environment, expectations, ability to brush
Mm-hmm.
it off versus not brush it off, right? Some of the other people that responded said that they were never able to wear the clothes that they've always wanted, but rather maybe things that were deemed more appropriate or comfortable. Someone had mentioned that they're hyper aware of their appearance at all times.
Mm.
Someone had written in that they were always ashamed of their body, felt a lot of shame.
Wow.
Someone else had written in that they were really conscious of eating less in front of family so as not to trigger their comments. And someone else, the last thing I'll share is that someone else had written that this is a pretty big fear for them, that it will get passed on to their child and their child will experience the same things that they've experienced. And she goes on to say that her 1-year-old, I think she said 1-year-old daughter, but I'm not quite sure. Her 1-year-old already hears these things from her mom,
Oh.
like
Oh
her grandma,
no.
the kid's grandma. Yeah.
Oh
At 1
no.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I love how these people were so willing to share, like,
Yeah.
and be vulnerable and shed light on this issue. So thank you for doing that. If you're
Yeah.
listening and you participated, because it's not easy to talk about things like this, and
Mm-mm. Yeah.
it's really saddening to hear how many people do deal with this and how much it's undercovers.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not really it's starting to become more talked about, but it's still not where we want to be, in my
Hmm.
opinion.
I think that what we're experiencing perhaps is that a lot of those of maybe like our generation and younger are more aware and conscious of these things and these body neutrality, body positivity rhetoric. But I don't quite think that there's a lot of change. And if there is, there's a limited change in the generation above and the way
Hmm.
that they approach it now. And I will get into that story of one example a little later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited to
So,
hear about it.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
Are you
my
going?
quiz, though. I mean, anything surprise you? Anything like catch you off guard? Did that feel kind of like as expected?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And the response about the 1-year-old daughter was just like, ugh, like
Yeah.
awareness comes with that price. Like, okay, now you
Yeah.
know what's happening. Now that fear of passing it on and the fact that it's
Yeah.
already happening in front of your face.
Right.
That's disheartening to
Yeah.
me. Like,
Yeah.
now you know that it's it's an issue, and it's just I just can't imagine that burden, like that feeling
Mm,
of like, I don't want my child to go through this, yet it's happening.
yeah. I mean, knowing is like one thing, doing is another, right? She,
Hmm.
like this person in particular, she's aware that this is happening, which is difficult to witness, difficult to
Yeah,
experience and like have that fear. But it's a
yeah,
whole other
yeah.
beast to kind of conquer of
Agreed.
what can
It's the
she
first
do
step.
about it?
It's the
Yeah, and
first
like
step.
advocating, being that safe space, having some boundaries.
Hmm.
Those things are helpful, but they're scary steps.
Yes, they
And
are,
they
and
require
it's
confronting it yourself, like your own demons too.
exactly, and it's a huge burden. Like you shouldn't have to feel like you
Yeah.
have to do these things. Like this
Yeah.
issue should not, and unfortunately, like that's the mentality, right? Like
Hmm.
the commentary, thinking that it's casual, thinking it's like, oh, it's better, it'll be, nothing will come with it, that ignorance that maybe
Yeah.
the older generation experience with this topic, like it's not helpful, and it's such a huge burden to bear, that, oh, I need to stop this because it's
Hmm.
generational, clearly.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that sometimes while it is generational, we do learn and we do repeat what we see. So I do think that
Hmm.
our generation as a whole, we're not, scot free. I think that some of
Hmm.
us who haven't questioned it or feel weird questioning it, we might still continue to carry that message. And I think this is for anyone who's watching who does, this is a good moment to kind of pause and reflect and think about like, we don't have to do that. We can break that.
Hmm.
We don't need to keep perpetuating those
100%.
things.
Yeah.
But like I think it's important to maybe first call out too, like what are these harmful like casual comments that we're talking about, right? So I made actually a quick
Hmm.
list here of like some of the things that I often hear in my experience growing up or now, or like what clients say and
Hmm.
things like that. And here's a couple. So these harmful comments in particular, they're not necessarily about somebody else. Like if I'm talking to you, it's not necessarily the harmful comments I'm saying about you. It could also just be like you're in the vicinity as I say it to myself,
Mm.
because those are still things you're internalizing. Those are things that you're
Yeah.
still, especially as a kid or even, whoever, you're realizing, oh, this is what the people around me think of themselves. I wonder how
Yeah.
harshly they judge me then. Um, right. So like things like, oh, I'm getting fat, or oh my gosh, I need to lose weight. I ate too much food for dinner. I have to compensate. I have to earn my next meal. Like a fixation with a certain body part, like, oh, my tummy's too big, or like my thighs are too
Yeah.
large. You don't, oh man, I don't look good in these like shorts, or like you don't look good in a crop top. Do more cardio. You got to burn off all of these things to earn your next meal. Even like beliefs like don't eat too much carbs, or like don't lift weight, you'll
Hmm.
get bulky, and like that's gross, especially for a
Yeah.
girl. You can only have like one cheat meal. Don't have sweets. Certain clothes don't look good on you.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip dinner because I had a really heavy lunch, or I'm going to skip dinner because I had a really like, I don't know, fried snack or sweets. I mean, Indian snacks and Indian sweets are delicious, but they're very calorie dense, right? So this is
Yeah.
something I heard all the time. Like my mom used to do that. She used to skip meals because she would allow herself to eat a little or binge
Hmm.
on certain snacks.
Yeah.
So like some of these things, right? Like some of them can be pointed at you, like, hey, those don't look good on you. Don't wear those clothes. But it
Mm.
could also just be like, oh, I don't look good. I got to go earn this next meal. I mean, when you're growing up or when you're surrounded by people who do think that way, you're going to internalize, oh, maybe I should be thinking that way. That's what you normalize. That's what you believe, whether you're a
Exactly.
child or you're just surrounded by a bunch of people who think that way.
Yeah.
So these are the kinds of harmful comments that kind of came up to my mind when I was thinking about casual commentary. Can
Yeah.
you think of anything or add anything to that?
Well, I have a few comments that I've experienced myself that are more
Yeah.
like South Asian specific. I feel like that I'll go into my story once we're ready. But
Okay.
I like, I feel like that those comments I think that goes
Yeah.
broadly in society too,
Yeah.
that are more like, Like, I feel like I hear that every day, not only within the South Asian specific community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important. I love that you pointed that out. Like, it's not just about the certain person, it's just about yourself too, that can create that connotation, create that tone, that meaning of like, oh, you should probably, like, like, oh, maybe I should also pay attention to that body part of myself since you're doing it for your body.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You internalize what you see, and then those become the normal.
Yeah.
Because that's what we see.
For sure.
So that becomes normal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I can go on a soapbox. I will not.
No, I love, I'm learning from you. Like, I didn't even think of it like that, Yeah. Like, I feel like most of my experience, now that I think back, like, there are so many casual commentaries, not about me, but about others, or I'm in the vicinity, that have taken effect on me. Yeah. But it's like so important to name that too. You're right. Which is so awesome. Yeah. And I'm sure not a lot of people think like that. They probably think of the more obvious, right? Like, towards you.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing though, right? Like, what ends up happening because it's not about you is sometimes you don't like internalize it as like, oh, it's okay, it's not about me. But it kind of embeds itself, and like subconsciously you will be acting that out. Nice. Jinx. And really, like, for example, like, I have a client who has body dysmorphia, and a lot of that root was, so basically, real quick, body dysmorphia is like when you really see yourself in an exaggerated way that's not accurate to the way you are, whether that's like you see yourself as really skinny and you're not, whether that's you see yourself as really like quote unquote fat and you're not, like whatever, right? So this client of mine, like, she grew up hearing, and she's in a Latina community, so a little bit different, but even in Latinx community, in any community, you like experience this, of course. But like her mom, aunts, cousins, they would say things about themselves, not about other people. But she would internalize that because she would see them comparing themselves that way. But the thing is that like her family members were able to brush it off and be like, I'm not ready for like bikini season. But they didn't care. They would still wear a bikini and go into the swimming pool. But for her, it was different. She internalized it. So like she gets stuck at that place of, I'm not ready for bikini season. That's it, period. I can't brush it off. Right? So like there's just, this is what I mean, like subconsciously, like we might not think like, oh, someone's saying this about me, but it'll still do the damage to say it about yourself.
Agreed. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at you. So much knowledge to share. I love it. I feel like I just want to attend a class taught by you. And I'd be like taking notes. And be like, oh yeah.
I could go
like,
on
I don't
and
know. I don't know if you noticed my face. I was like, oh yeah, like that's another way to think about it that I've never thought about myself. And it's like opens a whole new door. I'm reflecting on my past now. I'm like, wow.
Like I gotta rewrite my whole experience and the way I've seen it.
Well, I feel like I have a little bit more to add to it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to hear.
Okay. Am I going first? Yes.
Would you like to?
Yeah, I can go first and then you can go.
Okay.
All right. So when I definitely did the same kind of thing as you, I kind of like thought about the comments that I've kind of experienced personally. And I've definitely had my fair share, and I feel like it's still going, right? Like I feel like this doesn't stop, especially if someone, who's having different milestones in my life, right? Like people are definitely making different comments. And so growing up, definitely was surrounded by those aunties in my community that were not only commenting about me, but other people, to my face, to not to my face. And they weren't just women, they were men too. So uncles as well.
Right.
And I have a few snippets that I would like to share. To start off, I wanted to talk about actually my family. So I have a huge family, and growing, and I've kind of talked about that in the past podcast episodes too, but this is important. I'd like to note again, like it's a huge family, lots of extended family, and like we were all in the same proximity growing up. And so we would all get together to celebrate different occasions, birthdays, graduations. And of course, food would be at the center, right?
Yes.
Very very common, right? And I feel like in all
Mhm.
South Asian traditions, like food is life, which
Food
I
is,
love.
yeah, food is
Food
everything.
is life. And don't get me wrong, the food was always amazing. I would always enjoy it.
So tasty.
Um, and it would always be like family style, buffet style. So, I would be many occasions I would be like filling up my plate and someone will come hover behind my shoulder and be like, "How much more are you gonna get?" Like as a joke.
Mm,
And but it wasn't a joke to me. Like it kind of made me
right.
like self-conscious, like, oh, maybe I
Yeah.
should like decrease the amount of food I'm eating right now.
Yeah.
It was actually very hurtful. And it's like I feel like ingrained in my head clearly. Like I can remember like
Yeah.
word for word. And another instance was I was actually in my place of worship. This random uncle that I don't even know well
Oh
came
boy.
up to me and
Mm,
said that I was fat, like straight up. He was like, "You're fat, and that you need to lose weight instantly."
mm,
And he went on to tell me, like, lecture me almost about the different ways I can do
goodness.
it. And mind you, right? Remember, like, I have no idea who he is, and I was
Yeah.
probably in early high school. My body's going through lots of changes. I'm going through
Yeah.
puberty,
Yeah.
and I feel like after that too, like the amount of time I stared myself in the mirror, picking out
Yeah.
like what I feel like is
Oh,
fat, it's not the shape I want, it's not the weight I want
yeah.
due to all the comments I received. Like
Yeah.
it was a lot. Like I feel like it was a lot of hours. I feel like it would add up to a lot of time. And like kind of
Yeah.
reflecting on what you talked about earlier about other casual commentary that was in my vicinity or not towards
Mhm.
me, like
Yeah.
can definitely name so many examples. Like I would have a random auntie asking me about a friend or another person, and she'd be like, I don't know if you've heard this term before, like, oh well, healthy valley, right? Like the healthy one, like the healthy one.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
and they would make like the
Healthy.
gesture of like their arms
Uh, yeah.
like around their belly like this, right?
Hmm.
Like they would put your
The
like they would
moti.
kind of
Yeah.
yeah, like kind of like
Mm,
the fat gesture and they'd be like, "Oh, the
yeah.
healthy girl." And like
Mm.
that again is another vicinity
Ugh,
comment
yeah.
subconsciously creeping in my head like, "Oh, are they saying that about me too? Or should I
Yeah.
think about that myself?" And it was just like these comments continued piling up and I did kind of experience a lot of like self-image issues, body image
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
I was constantly comparing myself to the beauty standards I saw in movies, TV, social media. I remember getting angry at myself for eating that extra slice of pizza or an extra dessert just because I wanted to. And it was
Mm,
just really hard. And I feel like even till now, I've struggled with it a little bit.
yeah.
Um, and I think it's part of that self-love journey and you know, it's a progress and I still struggle sometimes here and there. And let's be like what you talked about, let's be real, like the comments don't stop. At
Yeah.
least for me, they haven't stopped.
Yeah.
Even like people that are in my bubble or vicinity, like that are older, that don't mean like I get it, like they don't mean harm, but it is harmful.
Mm,
And
right.
and I love that you shared that response from the poll, like the skinny shaming and fat shaming, because it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes it kind of social like all the talks that we've been talking can be focused on one
Mm,
side of the issue, but
yeah.
it is like I remember like if I had lost weight and like a, a random auntie or someone will be like, "Oh, like what happened to you, beta? Like, you
Yeah.
know, you look too skinny." Or
Yeah.
or like the other like the outfit doesn't
Mm,
look good on you anymore. Like it looks too
yeah.
loose. Like what
Yeah.
you talked about like the clothes, right?
Mm,
Like that's
yeah.
another comment that might not be directed at my body, but it's what I'm wearing which can
Yeah.
in return or like therefore like can affect how I feel about my
Yeah.
body.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I
it's like
love
that guy said, right, about being skinny and fat shamed. I mean, he was saying like there's just no winning
mhm.
because it's not even like about you, right? It's somebody else's opinion, somebody else's view. It's their quote unquote like baggage, their shit that they're pushing
Yeah.
on everybody. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's something that can be said about like that's what they know, that's what they've experienced, and they've been quote unquote brainwashed into thinking that that is how they show love, that is how they show care about somebody, is to be like all up in your face and tell you what you are and are not.
Mm-mm.
But we don't have to do that. We can be better. We can do better. We can show love in different
Yeah.
ways, at least now moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I think about the comments, the responses that you shared. Like, I understand why it's hard to speak up.
Yeah.
Like those family
Yeah.
comments. Like, that's
Oh
my
yeah.
family members. Like, I did not want to cause issue, or I didn't want to like cause any challenges, so I didn't speak up because I was guilty
That's the
about that.
people
Like,
pleaser in all of us.
and like, so I just kind of like kept it to myself instead of being
Yeah.
like, hey, you know, I'm hungry today. Like a
Yeah.
clap back. Like, and
Yeah.
there are people out there, I've heard like stories from other people that are starting, like, that do have those comments that they talk back.
Love
And,
it. Mhm.
that's the goal one day for me too. Like, I would like to be like, oh yeah, like, I am gonna get more because I didn't eat that well for breakfast or lunch. I'm really hungry for dinner. Would you like
Yeah,
to
or
join me?
like
Do you
it's
want more on
yummy.
your plate?
I
Yeah.
want
Do you want more
to.
on your plate?
This is
Yeah.
delicious. You want some?
Yeah.
You hungry?
Yeah. And it's that idea of like that food, the relationship with food is so complex, right?
Yeah.
Like when it comes to
Mhm.
these, when it becomes more complex, it's already complex, but it becomes more complex with commentary like this.
Yeah.
And like, treating myself to that extra piece of dessert or like an extra piece of candy or whatever I want shouldn't
Mhm.
feel like I should feel guilty about, or I have to like, you
Yeah.
know, eat less the next day, or kind of have this negative sense of self towards,
Mhm.
that body image, like, oh, you ate that extra slice of pizza, now like look what's happening
Mm.
on your belly, which is like
Mm.
unrealistic too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I appreciate that, like, generally, right, like in our society, like diet culture is slowly changing, like it's lifestyle
Mhm.
over like indulging or restricting.
Mhm.
It's more like modification, like, my the workout program that I do, it's like the 80/20. Like, 80% of the time I'm trying to eat healthy, but the 20% I can reward myself and indulge and enjoy, and
Mm.
like not completely restrict myself. And I like that because it
Yeah.
really does. I feel like that's helped me improve my relationship with food.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's
and
sustainable.
mhm, mhm. And it's
Yeah.
realistic. Like, can you imagine
Yeah.
100% of the time having to eat like
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
grass food,
Too
like
many good
salads and
stuff out
like
there. Not missing
right,
out.
right, exactly. There's so much good food out there. Um, and you know,
Yeah.
I'm working towards like changing my view about these comments that I
Mm.
still get. And like you
Yeah.
said, I loved how one of your responses was like brushing off, like, I'm not there yet, but I would like to be like, okay, I hear this comment, but I get to decide how much importance I want to give them. Because at
Mm.
the end of the day, I know my body the best. And I know that being healthy doesn't have to mean that I'm not treating myself occasionally. Or
Mm. Yeah.
if I do treat myself, I start feeling start loathing myself, or start
Right.
like hating how I look, or hating myself for that
Yeah.
extra treat or whatever it is.
Mm.
So it's really, I feel like I'm working on that too. It's like hearing that comments, or hearing those comments and saying, okay, I don't receive this. Like,
Mhm.
I don't, I don't have the energy, and I don't want to acknowledge it and take it
Yeah.
in. I choose not to. And
Yeah.
that's the hard part, making it a choice,
Yeah.
choosing not to let it affect you, because it's definitely a journey to get there. And that's my goal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And unfortunately, I think for those of us who have experienced that so much and like still continue to, I think it's always just going to be a journey, and it's always going to be something that we have to keep battling and healing and
Exactly.
choosing every single moment to moment.
Yeah, for sure. But that's my story.
Mm.
So just some commentary, harmful effects
Yeah.
of commentary. There we go.
Mm. I didn't even know some of these things. I mean, I could have
Yeah.
imagined because everybody goes through it, but like the one about that random uncle coming up to you and like,
Hmm.
what? That blew me
Yeah.
away. My
Yeah.
gosh, I just want to
And
go
he was
back and give
very
that
serious
Michelle a
too.
hug.
Oh, thank you. But like
Okay, I'm
I
just gonna
remember he was like, oh,
hug.
hugs. I remember he was like so serious too. He was just like,
Mm.
this is so important. And I was like in front of like, we weren't, it was in public, like it was communal area, right? Like it was
Stop
just,
in front of
yeah.
people. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
god.
Mm-hmm.
I can just like feel little U's like shame and like,
Yeah.
oh, that's so, that just makes me cringe so much. Oh my gosh. I'm giving your little you such
Oh,
a big hug right now. I'm squeezing the
thank
crap
you.
out of her.
Thank you. I love
I'm
you.
sorry you had to hear that and deal with that. Gosh. Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I have kind of a similar story, as you can imagine. I'm sure a lot of us do. But, growing up, I kind of always danced around like quote unquote heavier side just because, that's just kind of the kind of food that we have in
Mm-hmm.
Desi culture. It's a little fattening, and like
Mm-hmm.
then you come to America, and like back in the day, what did kids do without any understanding of what they were eating? Eat a bunch of McDonald's. So
Mm-hmm.
like I always kind of danced the line of that, like chubby and like a little bit overweight for my BMI and all of that. Of course, now I don't really focus too much on BMI, but back then that was kind of how I looked. So that is a lot of what I've received in terms of comments.
Mm.
Constant, oh my gosh. When I say I identified as healthy, I mean like the Indian way, the South Asian way, the very Desi way of like, oh, you're so healthy for your age. Oh, you're so healthy.
Mm.
Let's get more food in you. And it's like,
Gross.
first of all, where does that even come from? The idea of healthy meaning like you're a little bit on the chubbier side or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Like, where did that even come from?
I
When
know.
did
And
we
it's like the weirdest way
identify
they say it,
healthy
like
with that?
healthy, healthy. Like
I,
they say it
yeah,
in such
like
a weird way
what?
too.
And that always just like confused like the crap out of me, but
Yeah.
whatever. That happened, right? Obviously, as you know, like comments. I freaking love sweets. I'm a big foodie, like my
Mm-hmm.
grandfathers. My grandfathers loved food. So do I. I take after them by a lot.
Yeah.
Food is literally my life, just like it was
Yes.
for them.
I love that. Food is
So
life.
it is. So like I enjoy all the yummy things in life. Like I love
Mm-hmm.
sweets. I love savory things. I love all of the food. So I ate, but when I did, kind of like yourself, like I would get a lot of that like, oh, you're going for another piece, or like, oh, you're gonna eat the sweet thing after that fried thing. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna get more food. You're gonna, just a lot of these like. Or, like, sometimes my mom would sometimes give me a look at a party, like, okay, like, kind of, like, trying to not shame me in front of everybody to kind of be like, "Back off."
Mm-hmm.
And that was because, again, like I said, technically, I was a little bit on the, I was dancing around that side, and, like, South Asians, we have a lot of cholesterol issues. It's
Mm-hmm.
the food we eat. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
happens. But, I mean, I did witness too, like, a lot of the women in my family, and I continue to witness a lot of the women in my family talking a lot of shit about themselves.
Mm.
Not just about me, which is rare. Usually their shit about me is, "Oh, you're so healthy," which I don't know, I guess it's meant as a compliment. I don't know. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
like one. But
Yeah.
in all seriousness, for themselves though, like straight out of my mom's mouth, like she would eat some chips, eat some like murku or something, and then be like, "I can't eat dinner. I'm full." And I know she wasn't full. She
Mm.
was just trying to like not eat too much, not eat too many
Yeah.
calories. She always had a thing about, like certain dresses and like if they would look good on me or not. Like shorts were a big thing, but that's also because they were a little bit conservative. So like shorts was already like weird for them, but also like my
Mm.
thighs were always a little bigger. So it was like, oh, you don't look good in it. Don't wear those things. Like they were all about restriction, basically.
Mm.
This is what I saw in my like direct family and like kind of my circles of South Asian
Restriction.
parties, communities. A lot of people that I witnessed in my circles didn't try to work out. My dad kind of did
Mm.
here and there. He tried to make that a habit a little bit more for like healthier lifestyle instead of necessarily like full on restriction. But especially the women in my family and just generally most people would rather skip meals, would rather eat less or just completely cut out foods than like find a balance and work out and eat and do
Mm.
both. Even now, to this day. I mean, that's kind of changing slowly as I continue to like lecture my mother every time, be like,
Yeah.
"Mom, go lift weights. It's good for your
Yeah.
bones. Mom, go do this." She's
Yeah.
kind of getting into that a little bit, but
Oh,
like
that's
those
good.
habits are hard to break.
Yes, for sure. They are.
Yeah. And I had a very like pointed conversation one time with my parents after a summer where I went home and I was struggling with health issues, granted. I was having a lot of hormonal stuff going on. So there was a lot adding to this, but my parents had me on a very strict like salmon and veggies and
Mm.
yogurt diet. And that is all. That is all I had.
Wow.
I didn't really have carbs. For them it was like, no, carbs are what's keeping your weight up. Carbs are what's the enemy. And they
Wow.
pushed me to go to the gym and like do cardio in particular, not lift weights because that would be bulky, that would look maybe weird, but cardio, like run and like walk,
Oh
mainly
my
run, which I
gosh.
hated to do for an entire summer. And I did lose weight, of course. I mean, I was starving myself, but I was
Oh,
so scarred that I literally, for like the next, I don't even know, twice as long as that summer, I went the opposite way. I like binged. I had such a like a unhealthy relationship to like working out, and like there
wow.
was a lot of unhealthy things that I learned
What
basically.
summer was this? Like we were in high school?
This was in college.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Even
I'm so
then.
sorry.
Yeah. So I sat them down one time and I kind of had a like a very honest conversation. I was like, look, this isn't working. This isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
I really hate this. Kind of hate
Mm-hmm.
myself right now. And like, I don't want to keep doing this for the rest of my life. I don't care. And I was telling them all the reasons why this wasn't sustainable and good, but all they could hear was, or all they could focus on was, got you the results, didn't it? It just
Oh
takes discipline.
no.
And
Oh
to this
no.
day, I kid you not, I had a conversation with my dad the other day about something I'm doing now and trying now around this. And he was like, well, it worked, didn't it? About that time. And I'm like, oh my God, Dad. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it worked. But
That's
like,
really
did I
frustrating.
maintain it?
That's really frustrating. And I wonder if
Hard
it
to
has
break
to
that.
do with that taboo, right? Like,
Mm,
yeah, we got the results, but what at what expense? The mental health.
yeah.
But again, mental
Yeah.
health, what is that? Like,
Weakness. Have discipline.
yes. Or like not even acknowledging that mental health
Yeah.
is not something that's in your
Mm,
control. I think that's like the
yeah.
biggest thing. Like, oh, you can
Yeah.
control feeling that way, but you can't.
Yeah.
Like, mental health doesn't work
Mm-mm.
that way. But props to you for sitting down and having this conversation with your parents and standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
That's
Tried.
awesome.
Well, this was, like we talked about, I think the last podcast or the podcast before, like my anger getting really big. So I was like, all right, sit down, let's talk. It was really coming from that like anger's need to like protect all that pain and all that hurt. Um, and then more recently, though, as I've kind of learned to heal and not listen to my parents, I finally recognized while I loved my parents and I cannot change them and have them
Mm-hmm.
be a little bit more healthy, they were going to do what they were going to do. They're just so
Mm-hmm.
stuck in their habits and it quote unquote works for them. So, like, fine,
Mm-hmm.
that's them. I finally realized like I needed to not listen to that because it just didn't work for me and I needed to listen to
Yeah,
myself. So I
that's good.
started really doing more like intuitive eating and like that was
Mm-hmm.
helpful in healing my relationship with food.
Good.
However, I was still surrounded by other people who didn't believe in
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of moments of like relapse of like binging and then lying about it or sneaking around. So even though I was doing
Mm-hmm.
intuitive eating, it was still not really healthy until I really put my foot down and I like screamed my boundaries at people and like I really went after it to enforce like when it comes to this, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I need you to really butt the hell out of this. And like
Yeah.
that helped me kind of maintain some semblance of healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, as you know, like I have a lot of health issues, hormonal issues and stuff kind of in the background. So to just kind of help and like as a secondary part of healing when I hit a wall, I've recently, and you don't know this, but I've recently started working with a really, really amazing group of women coaches who are like
Mm-hmm.
nutritionists, but also like fitness coaches. And they're
Okay.
really focused on the South Asian like experience here in America. So,
Wow. That's so
yeah, like a
cool.
dual culture, like eat the
Yeah.
foods you love, but make it work for you.
Wow.
Eat the
I
foods
love
you love
it.
here, but make it work for you. And I love them. So A little quick shout out. It's called BBR, Boss Body Revolution, and it was
Ooh.
started by Dee Gautam.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah. And she has like her own inspirational story of like why she started it and all of this. And basically, I just really resonated with her concepts, which actually
Yeah.
I
It's
love,
so
love,
neat.
love because they're so rooted in therapy. Like this,
Wow.
a lot of the things that they kind of preach and they kind of base the foundation of their work are things that I talk about daily in like my therapy with my clients. And so I
That's
love like,
beautiful.
I know, I really love it. They're amazing.
I love that. This is, I've
Little
never heard of that
random,
before. I'm so glad you shared. That's so cool.
yeah,
So
I know,
glad that that's
yeah.
helping you. Yeah.
Not sponsored. Anyone listening, not
Oh
sponsored.
my
This is
gosh.
very
Well, it sounds
random, just
so
something I'm
cool.
trying.
Sounds rare too, right? Like, but it's so needed. It's
Yeah.
so important. Like, I'm interested in this, you know? Like, this
Yeah.
is cool.
Exactly. And it
Yeah.
really just kind of helps basically, again, like I said, right, understanding the nutrition behind things, like finally getting the education that matters to make these
Yes.
important healthy decisions,
Yes.
to have some accountability, and on the side of like our traumas and stuff, recognizing like a lot of their platform is recognizing and understanding that a lot of their clients who they target for, South Asian women in particular, is that South Asian women go through exactly what we're talking about, these harmful comments, these
Exactly.
traumas, and helping them unlearn them, helping them within the degree of ability they have. They're not therapists, but like within the degree of ability they have, helping them unlearn these unhelpful habits and
Mm,
learn
I love that.
educational, helpful habits.
I love
I
that.
love
And you
that so
know,
much.
this was actually one of the Boston University article that I was sharing about in the beginning.
Uh
That
huh.
was one of the drivers too of like
Yeah.
these issues was that the West there's so much diet culture in the Western society and it's focused on like
Yeah.
American food and not
Mm
South Asian cuisine. And so like
hmm.
that
Mm hmm.
guilt of eating South Asian food and or that guilt
Yeah.
with it or avoiding it because of the different nutritional value to
Yeah.
it and not being able to like be mindful of what you're putting in your body if you don't have that education like okay like I can eat my South
Yeah.
Asian foods but this is how I should
Yeah.
eat them like that's so amazing that they're targeting
Exactly.
that. That's so cool because you can be
Exactly.
proud of your
Oh, yeah.
culture and participate in your culture but in
Yeah.
a healthy way. I love that.
Exactly. In a balanced way that works for you in
Yeah,
your life. Yeah, they're all
exactly.
about like meeting you where you're at and
I
working on
love
the
that.
things you already have. I literally just
Beautiful.
cannot say enough amazing things about them. In my experience, I've only been with them for a month so far. I've
Okay.
already felt so much at my healthiest and my most
Oh,
aware
that's
because that's
so
exactly what they
good.
do. They're so thorough
Yes.
with like the
Oh,
education, the accountability, the support and like understanding and compassion of like,
oh, that's so awesome.
you can't do this, no worries, start where you can, we'll build up, we'll see where you are like,
Yeah, I
in the
love
next
that.
bit and the next bit. And I love them, definitely worth checking
Mm.
out. They have an Instagram called BBR
Okay.
if you want to check it out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So the last thing I'll share, and I'll wrap up my story, is basically that a couple of months ago, I think it was a couple months ago, I had a conversation with some of the women in my family. And I was sharing with them some of the things that I see as a result of casual harmful commenting, particularly in my clients, particularly in other like stories I know, and a little bit of my own experience. And mentioning how, like, sometimes, like myself, I am fortunate enough to have found a way through this journey to figure out how to heal, how to do this. But for some
Mhm.
people, they get so affected, like I said, that one client, right, who has body dysmorphia. She has
Mhm.
struggled with this for so, so long. It takes
Mhm.
such a toll. She stops herself from doing some of the things that she wants to do. She stops herself
Mm.
from being able to hug people because they would feel
Ah,
her body. She stops herself from being able to do like simple things, even like taking pictures with people she loves to
yeah.
remember memories. So I kind of sat them down and I was telling them, like, look, I get that these are like habits and I get that sometimes you say them like lovingly, but like we've got a lot of like little cousins. I've got very impressionable young cousins right now, middle school, barely high school, some
Mhm.
elementary age. And I was like, you guys have got to stop with these comments. They're gonna
Wow.
create an effect that you won't know.
Amazing.
But get this.
What was the reaction? I want to hear this.
Their reaction was, wow, that's terrible. Didn't know that could happen. But I can't stop.
They
Their
said they can't stop?
reaction was, I mean, primarily their reaction was, I don't think I can stop doing that. And I was like, why? You just have to catch yourself and then not say those things.
Yeah. What did
Or
they
at
say?
least walk it back if you say it. And they were like,
Yeah.
we've just done it for so long. By that count, I can't say anything. And I was like, oh my gosh.
No.
I was so frustrated that day. But like, this is something I keep reiterating in the hope that at least sometime they'll be able to understand and catch themselves. And I think I know like a couple of them are kind of seeing that, because very, very sad. I have a elementary school cousin, and she's very what's the word? I'm like blanking for words right now. Conscious
yeah.
and insecure about the way one of her body parts looks.
Body conscious, yeah.
She's in elementary school. She's very conscious of the way one of her body parts looks. She restricts herself from eating
elementary
things.
school should be thinking about.
I literally
disheartening.
felt, I heard that one time and it has just stuck with me so deeply, and I'm just so saddened because they're not even necessarily things that she might be hearing directly to her. Maybe they are. To be fair, I'm pretty sure some of them are directed to her, but a lot of them too, I know for a fact, are things that she hears other people say about themselves.
That's terrible.
It's just so heartbreaking.
It is. And it's not okay. And I want to applaud you for speaking up to your family members, because I'm sure that was not easy. Sitting down and like standing up for the younger members of your family, like that's amazing that you did that. Yeah. Even though you got some pushback in their immediate response, you should be so happy and proud that you build that awareness. And you challenge something that they've been doing for probably almost their whole lives. So
and that they've experienced their whole lives.
And they've probably received, right, in their lives. Exactly. And so it's a huge thing that you challenge. So the fact that you brought awareness to them is so amazing. And, hopefully with continuous reflection and processing of what you said, hopefully there is a spark, I hope so. Maybe because, immediate reaction and like a later on reaction is so different. Yeah. And I can speak that when I've spoken up with my parents or my family members, like I haven't gotten the best immediate responses, but I've seen some progress over time.
Yeah, change.
So I'm so proud of you that you did that.
Yeah.
Like,
thank you.
It's
easy. I felt like it was easy to do that though, because it wasn't advocating for myself. It was advocating for little ones. Yeah. Felt easier to do.
I mean, that's something I can relate to too. Like my parents would actually make harmful commentary sometimes towards my sister, and I remember standing up for her too. And it was easier than standing up for myself. I completely agree. Yeah. But it's so important to do that. But it's not always easy. So I wanted to name that, like that you took that time and energy to sit down and challenge years and years and years of mindsets. So you should be really proud of yourself.
You're right. I shouldn't
dismiss it.
Brush it off. Good job, Anusha.
Don't brush it off. And give us some time. You said it was a few months ago. Like, what if it's already in fruitation right now? Like, you planted that seed. You got to let it bloom.
Well, what I know is that it's already affected some of the girls. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think that now that they're seeing, like the parents, especially the moms, are seeing their kiddos think that way, I'm hoping that kind of is like, oh shit, like, my words had an impact. I got to reel it in. I'm hoping that at the very least is helping. Yeah. But I think that if we don't keep talking about this, then this generation, younger generation, if they keep hearing this, they're going to keep carrying it with them.
Yeah, it'll repeat. We need to
and I think that, we need to keep talking about it. So at the very least, we can at least normalize, hey, this is happening with other people, but it shouldn't be happening. We can do something about that. We don't have to do that. We don't need to go and say, wow, you've lost weight. which by the way is like a big favorite thing. Every time I go to India, like even if it's true or not, even if I've gained weight, they love to be like, wow, you've lost weight now, because they think
Yeah.
that's like a healthier version of you've gotten healthy. And I'm like, no, please stop talking about my weight altogether. But like, no weight comments. We don't need to talk about appearance.
Yeah.
Just say someone looks beautiful. Just say, how are you? Just say what's bringing you joy.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about weight.
How's your heart?
We
It's
don't
my
need it.
favorite.
How's your heart? I love that. I've never heard that. I like that.
Really? I have. I love it. How's your heart doing?
How's your heart doing today? I love that so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that to you next time I see you.
Okay. I am excited to see you.
But yeah, I feel like this was a pretty big, heavy topic, sometimes even triggering topic. But I hope those of you who've stayed with us this long in the podcast, that you've learned something, felt validated, felt seen. And I hope it inspires you a little bit to set boundaries in your own life or advocate for somebody you care about.
100%. Right. You want to wrap us up, Anusha?
All right, let's wrap us up. So, as a reminder, if our podcast has resonated with you and our episode resonated with you and you'd like to share your story with us or ask us any questions, you can reach us, as always, at talksouthasiantome@gmail.com. Or if you are a Gen Z or millennial, you'll probably want to reach us out social media. So all of the social medias out there, our handle is the same. Our handle is the same. It's at Talk South Asian to me. So hope to hear from you guys, and thank you for listening to us on this heavy topic.
And if you had more thoughts about Anusha's poll that she talked about in the beginning, we would love to hear some responses about that from you, and what behaviors you've experienced or what you've experienced. We would love to hear that, or any commentary that you have heard or experienced.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty. Well, that's it for today, and we'll see you in the